Tobogganing, ours always got stolen off our balcony, even when they were chained to it, because of the Villamoine, mulleted, rat-tailed French bastards.
Tobogganing in Canada, I miss very much because you had your GT snow racer that you'd lean down on and you would go at maybe 80 miles an hour. And
don't you remember those, the Brett Hull commercials for GT Snow Racer?
Yeah, I've noticed, with all due respect to my new American allies here, they don't really take it as seriously as we used to. I remember being on the long ones, you'd break at 2 branches, right? So you had 2 little fat stubby sticks, and you'd steer with those. I mean, you'd be going upwards of 40 miles an hour. There was always that one kid every year who was in traction for 6 weeks because he broke his vertebrae in 7 places.
Well, I don't know about you, but we had a hill there in Longueuil. Place Longueuil is what it was called. And it became a contact sport because we didn't have ski lifts. You walk up. And so what it really was for the boys was grabbing them by the collar and sending them back down before they could get up.
Okay, number 2. You know what I miss about Canada is the way everyone is their last name. They'll go, look at McInnes and Crowder there shooting the crap about old Canada, eh?
I think that was just you and me, though, because we have interesting last names. I was always Crowder in school, but no one else was a last name.
Oh, really? In the Ottawa Valley, we didn't know anyone's first name. It was all Scottish last names, too. Check out McCarthy and McInnes coming in here 20 minutes late for class, eh?
I guess that makes sense. Well, for me, it was Crowder for Mr. Crowder, and then I was the little Crowder for that in the high school.
Maybe Quebec and the rest of Canada is more different than we think. Okay, number 3. This one's a little esoteric. In Britain, right, you have your class system with, hello, how are you? And then, I don't know what I'm doing in this party. I can't believe someone like me is at a party like this. But in Canada, it's so new that there is none of that class hierarchy, and everyone who's rich is nouveau riche, and it's more like anyone's dog for bone. You don't see a lot of snobbery in Canada the way you do in their parent country, Britain.
Well, I disagree. I just think it's because you don't see many rich people. You'd be like, hey, you see the Heinz house? They make $100,000. And that was a really big deal.
Right, but you'd meet the Heinz and they go, how's it going, eh? We're having a huge... You're going to freak out when you see our Halloween stuff. There's the whole monster you have to walk through his mouth to get candy.
Yeah, you know, Westmount people were still snobs in Montreal.
Okay, so this started out 10 things Gavin and Stephen miss about Canada, but it's really turning into 10 things that Quebecers and the rest of Canada do not have in common.
No, we don't. People will always tell you that. They'll say I'm not Canadian because I was raised in Montreal.
All right, let me try number 4. I've noticed that no matter how hosery, which is our rednecks, no matter how hosery you get, they are educated, they have a passport, they've been all over the world. So you'll go... Hear about Turkey in the news today? What the hell's going on there? Some guy just got shot for criticizing the president, eh? And they'll go, no, that wouldn't happen in Turkey. They're way too secular. I was there about 4 months ago of delicious food. You know they make more food than they consume? They actually export excess food. And you go, Jesus, how many people have been to Turkey?
I don't necessarily know that all my friends traveled abroad. I don't know that that's true of Canadians.
Okay, let's try another one. We're not really overlapping much here. This Venn diagram is thinner than a needle.
I think if this is the one that I think it is, I think we'll overlap.
Okay. I have noticed with Canadians, they will identify the elephant in the room. So if a guy has no nose at a dinner party, like it was blown off and it's just a hole here.
This is not the list we discussed at all.
Everyone else in the room will just sort of go, so, how are you? And the guy with the hole here will go, yeah, pretty good. We went tobogganing on Thursday. The Canadian will go, what the hell happened to you? What's going on with the hole there, guy? And he'll go, oh, I had cancer, and it was the easiest way. Usually I have a replacement, but it's not ready yet, so I just came with my normal hole.
Yeah, you know, I think this is just a Gavin list. I think this is just a Gavin list. When I think of Canada, I love how they would tell guys without noses that they clearly didn't have noses. I think Canadians are more polite than that. They think of Americans as brash and rude.
I don't see that as brash and rude, though. I see that as being all-encompassing and taking it in and saying, hey, you're part of our group. Are you okay? I notice you're missing eyes.
Yeah, maybe. Well, in those I don't necessarily know you'd say missing eyes. You'd just say blind.
How about this one? I have a funny feeling you'll agree with this. You can pretty much drive to any public school that you can make it to.
Oh, yeah, yeah, good a feeling I'll agree with that. Yeah, I dated a girl who lived down the street, and she went to a school 45 minutes away. I had no idea in the United States you were basically assigned to a public school that was closest to your house, and you didn't have a choice. In Canada, I had the choice in high school between 3 high schools, which were probably a total of 20, probably 30-something miles away from each other. We had one in Bruno, which was Heritage, and they called it the International School. I went to Centennial, and then there was Chambly, which was the Stoner School. So that was pretty nice. That was actually good. Good for you, Canada. You got that right. One for you.
You know what? I'm going to put on my Montreal Canadiens hat, and maybe that'll make me more attuned to things you miss about Canada. And then
Well, hold on. One thing. You know what? Montreal in at Christmas time, it far outpaces New York.
It is beautiful. Are we going to put that on the list? I think that brings us to 11, but I'll write it down.
That's okay. We'll just label it as 10 so the internet crowd can consume it more easily.
What about this one? Minorities can run for any weird, like Jean Chrétien, a guy with a stroke who probably never left Quebec, is all of a sudden running British Columbia.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. And it's always good for a laugh, even though, I wasn't a huge fan of it, that the Parti Québécois would still run for national office. Like their entire platform is they want nothing to do with Canada, yet they want to run Canada. And every time it came out, I had to laugh. You got to respect it.
I won't say what number this is because I'm totally lost. French chicks. I really miss, not that I would cheat, but say my wife, God forbid, was to die in a plane crash. I would miss French chicks.
Well, my mom's a French chick, but my mom was sort of backdoored in before they became whores. So I love my mom. But French chicks in my generation, it was, they would wear the washout jeans and K-Swiss shoes, and you took them to Belle Province for a couple of dogs. You had their ticket.
Well, they're Parisian. I mean, isn't it what Louis XIV called the fille de roi? He decided there was too many saucy broads in Paris, and he sent all this, not just prostitutes, but anyone with any kind of gumption and sassafras. He sent them down to Quebec. And then they bred with the natives and made these Métis super women who were just, I don't know how many bands.
Any of this?
What?
Can you substantiate any of this? Are you sure?
Look it up, dude. Fille de roi, women of the king. And what happened was it got to the point where every time I had a band stay at my house in Montreal, I'd say, what do you guys want to do? And they'd always say, I want to drink a king can, sit on a stoop, and look at chicks.
It's funny. We talked about that the first time you came on, and I've talked about this where I was celibate for a long time, and especially when you do, when you do stand-up, you have the microphone, right? It's not very hard to take your pick because, sorry, women, you may find this offensive, feminist, but they're attracted to power. You're commanding the room, and it was just like the French girls that were just so aggressive. It made it very difficult to stick to my guns. But is that what we're talking about when we say French chicks? Do we mean easy, or do you just mean pretty, or both?
Both. They have big lips. They look like Beatrice Dell. They have big lips, and they have these weird eyes that come up like a Disney cartoon, and then they have those little Bambi turned-up noses.
There is something about the French-Canadian look. Like, do you know Georges St. Pierre, the UFC welterweight champion?
Yes. We're best friends.
You look at him, and you go, French-Canadian. It's those big sort of take-that-clack-looking eyes, and it's just like, you just look at him, and you just know French-Canadian.
Yeah, usually when I'm talking about French chicks, I like to use a chick as an example, but sure, I'm sure he's very attractive and has beautiful eyes, too. Let's go to the last one here. I was driving home from upstate yesterday, and I was having this craving for fries. I was low on fuel, but it wasn't gas. My E was saying hand-cut fries. And if you're in Ontario, for example, every 2 miles you pull over and there's a chip van there, and that chip van is serving the most beautiful potatoes ever made. And if you'd like, we can add a layer of cheese curds, a layer of gravy, a layer of cheese curds, a layer of gravy, and create poutine, the greatest food known to man.
What bothers me about Canadians, they all like this, Swiss Chalet is mediocre, it's the McDonald's. Benny Barbecue was where you went. If you knew what was up, Benny Barbecue is where you got your poutine. In Montreal. Did you have a Benny Barbecue?
Oh, yeah. I went to Benny Barbecue many times, but I prefer the trashier poutine at Belle Province. But there's the guy who invented poutine, we lost him recently. He died of old age, but what an irreplaceable gift. And they try it here in America. They call it disco fries, But you can have the worst hangover. You can have a hangover that is so bad that when you see cancer patients on the street walking with their IV drip, you just nod at them because they're your peers now. You're both in the same boat. And then you just take one of that dripping, that line, the cheese curd line, you put it in your mouth, the sweet gravy sort of activates your saliva glands to help you digest, and all of a sudden, you didn't go out drinking last night.
No, you're absolutely right. They do it in the Midwest, though. Places like Grand Rapids, Iowa City, sort of these hipster enclaves outside of New York where they're big farm-to-table. Poutine is really big, but it's not the same. But like today's poutine, there's a restaurant around here. Today's poutine is a beef bourguignon broth with, and I'm like, well, just don't call it poutine. You have cheese and you have fries, but whatever else you're putting on it, it's not poutine. Just call it something else. But they use it as kind of a base. It's like a big sort of hipster meal deal now.
Too true. Ladies and gentlemen, that was 10 things exactly that Steven Crowder and Gavin McInnes miss about Canada.